All right, y'all. So let me get the link out and start this up. All right, so welcome to how to win friends and stop being autistic. I'm your host, Andrew, and this is also John Hartman.
Okay.
So let me get this link out.
Yeah. Got my physical copy here, as always, when we
Yes,
do these things. Yeah, this book is this is one I keep telling people to read now.
yeah, this is one of those books that it will change your life if you abide by it. If
Right.
you're I don't know if you're, but Twitter makes this so damn difficult. Jesus. All right, let's go. All right. So, I swear to you that it was a coincidence that, the chapter we're going to read tonight is how to criticize and not be hated for it. And with the kind of drama that's going on Twitter right now with, so we're going to, go over this. But first, I want to tell you about I want to tell you about some of our sponsors. The so for as some of you know, I actually started doing it. I finished a dry fast on for about 48 hours on just yesterday. And one of the symptoms I get, when I'm dry fasting is that I will get like pretty uncomfortable headaches, from the dehydration, but they usually pass. But this time around I tried something different because one thing you can't have anything enter your GI tract. Basically, nothing in your mouth. You can brush your teeth, but you're not really supposed to, but you can. But anyway, no food, no water. And and so like but so I couldn't take any CBD, usually gummies or tinctures like I usually do whenever I get headaches or something like that. But this time around I was prepared. I had this sports cream by Paloma Verde CBD, and also I had this salve, but this CBD salve, and I just rubbed these everywhere, on my forehead and on my temples, and headaches went away. And it's perfect. It's perfectly compatible with my dry fast, which I do for my health, and helps me, maintain my weight, helps me lower blood sugar, lower cholesterol, lower fat content, and all kinds of anti-cancer benefits. Everything. It's excellent. Oh, and helps lower your time preference as well. Yeah, seriously, you do have to have some intense willpower to tell yourself no, especially when your wife is downstairs cooking and everything smells delicious. And so the if you go to palomaverdecbd.com, you use promo code popular, not promo code, KING, which we will not talk about. Don't use that one. If you use promo code popular, you will get 25% off of your order over $75, and you can get this amazing sports cream. This is by far the best sports cream I've ever used, particularly when it comes to picking up a good habit of dry fasting, where you can just put this on your forehead and it smells amazing, by the way. But and you will not have howdy, Carlos. Thanks for the CBD. It helped me on my dry fast. See Carlos in the comments. But yeah, this is exactly what you need, and I will be using this forever on my future dry fasts. And and if you and if you use promo code popular, you will get 25% off your order over $75 and free shipping. And let's go ahead and get into the show. So for today, we have our next installment of Libertarian Social Skills. The So obviously, this is something we all struggle with, is how do you properly criticize people? Because if you're on Twitter and you're like, hey, you dumb bastards, why are you not listening to our libertarian ideas since we're right about everything? And I was like, this is probably not the right way, of winning people's hearts and minds, as we've seen some people who I will not mention today who've had awful takes in the last week and it's just been burning bridges. I would say left and right, but pretty much only with the right. So, but
I think if you've been a libertarian long enough, you definitely understand that it doesn't matter what you tell people. They're just not. I mean, you can't facts and logic them into being a libertarian or even thinking libertarian.
No.
So
No, you can't.
yeah.
And this is the point I've made repeatedly. They don't want what we're selling.
No.
But anyway, hopefully I will be talking about that with Larry Sharp soon. I'm hoping I can get him on the show. Apparently he has the same take. But yeah, if you are going to be still trying to actually reach out to people and actually build bridges, there's a proper way to criticize. And best case scenario, don't criticize people. It just always turns them off. They always makes them defensive. There's no upside from it. But if you have to, let's see what's the proper way to do it. And this is in How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and as part 4, chapter 2. And it starts off with saying, Charles Schwab was passing through one of his steel mills one day at noon when he came across some of his employees smoking. Immediately above their heads was a sign that said no smoking. Did Charles Schwab point to the sign and say, "Can't you read?" Oh no, not Schwab. He walked over to the men, handed them each one cigar, and said, "I'll appreciate it, boys, if you will smoke these on the outside." They knew that he knew that they had broken a rule, and they admired him because he had said nothing about it and had gave them a little present and made them feel important. Couldn't keep from loving a man like that, could you? John Wanamaker, used the same technique. Wanamaker used to make a tour of his great store in Philadelphia every day. Once he saw a customer waiting at a counter. No one was paying the slightest attention to her. The salespeople? Oh, they were in a huddle at the far end of the counter, laughing and talking amongst themselves. Wanamaker didn't say a word. Quietly slipping behind the counter, he waited on the woman himself and then handed the purchase to the salespeople to be wrapped as he went on his way. Public officials are often criticized for not being accessible to their constituents. They are busy people, and the fault sometimes lies in overprotective assistants who don't want to overburden their bosses with too many visitors. Carl Langford, who has been the mayor of Orlando, Florida, the home of Disney World for many years, frequently admonished his staff to allow people to see him. He claimed he had an open door policy. Yet, the citizens of his community were blocked by secretaries and administrators when they called. Finally, the mayor found a solution. He removed the door from his office. His aides got the message, and the mayor has had a truly open administration since the day his door was symbolically thrown away. Simply changing one 3-letter word can often spell the difference between failure and success in changing people without giving offense or arousing resentment. Many people begin their criticism, with sincere praise, followed by the word "but," and ending with a critical statement. For example, in trying to change a child's careless attitude towards studies, we might say, "We're really proud of you, Johnny, for raising your grades this term, but if you had worked harder on your algebra, the results would have been better." In this case, Johnny might feel encouraged until he heard the word "but." He might then question the sincerity of the original praise. To him, the praise seemed, only to be a contrived lead-in to a critical inference of failure. Credibility would be strained, and we would probably not achieve our objectives of changing Johnny's attitudes toward his studies. This could be easily overcome by changing the word "but" to "and." We're really proud of you, Johnny, for raising your grades this term, and by continuing the same conscientious efforts next term, your algebra grade can be up with all the others. Now Johnny would accept the praise because there was no follow-up of an inference of failure. We have called his attention to the behavior we wish to change indirectly. and the chances are he will try to live up to our expectations. Let's stop there for a minute. This is going to be this is like a really short chapter.
Yeah.
And I'm almost tempted just to read all the way through, but I think next time around we'll read all the way through. But for right here, I think we have a good stopping point. So what is Dale talking about right here? The people one, as he's discussed immediately, basically in chapter 1 of not criticizing people, about why that just makes people resent you. They're not going to like you if you do that. And what is he saying here? What you actually do, in order to and there's actually 2 techniques. He didn't talk about this in this chapter, but I'll give you a second technique for handling this. But for this, what he's saying is don't call direct attention to people's failures. They really don't like that. People, they nobody's perfect, obviously. But everyone in his right mind thinks I'm a pretty good guy. My failures are not that bad, et cetera, et cetera. And whenever you kind of pop their little bubble, and you actually bring reality crashing into the fact that they're not perfect, they really don't appreciate that. And so what you do here is you always indirectly criticize. You always bring it up kind of as a side thing, and you don't go straight into it. This is this is an incredibly important point if you're going to be trying to change people's minds about a bad behavior that they may be having. And a second technique that I use quite often, and it works a lot, is you signal to people ahead of time that you understand where they're coming from, and the mind and their mindsets, etc. And you say, hey, no worries, but let's move on from here. But what you try to do is you try to signal to them that you understand why they're doing it. I know, hey Johnny, I know how busy you are with your studies, and I know that maybe the B you got was in algebra, which is obviously a course many people struggle with, and et cetera, et cetera. And but I really think that because you're doing so well in all these other classes, that you can probably get your that you can probably manage to stick it. If you keep up this effort, you can probably get it there. And you wouldn't use the word but again, that's I just fell for the own trap there, right? But this is I know it's tough to get. It's a tough habit to break.
Yeah.
But you don't want to call direct attention if you're trying to change someone. There's a difference between are you trying to change someone's behavior, or are you trying to kind of score points? Because what we've seen a lot with is people will just try to score points and just try to be right. And I think this is an input fallacy that, it's not unique to libertarians. And I'm not going to say that a lack of social skills are unique to libertarians. In reality, it's really not. But this is this idea that, hey, we're just going to try to be right. And they don't see it themselves that way. They see themselves as, look, I have to stand up for truth. And they'll say oh, well, I have to, you don't get anywhere with people by making compromises and, and moderating and being halfway. I would say that's actually quite false. Moderates get everything done. Seriously. No, seriously. Moderates, run the entire system. No shit. They get everything. They get everything they want. So, I would actually say, that's actually factually, empirically false. So, but but this is something you'll actually notice about a lot of moderate politicians, and why they stay in office so long is they don't make enemies. And they don't criticize people, and when they do, they will usually try to caveat it with as much as possible, and try to make it a very tepid criticism. And the reason for it is basic social skills. It's not because that a lack of principle. It's part it's not stopped by a lack of principle for sure, but Yeah, they don't have any principles that would stop them. But no, the point of of that technique is basic social skills. That's where it's coming from. It's not like a sense of moderation. It's a sense of social skills. This is why moderates run our entire system of government. You would think that, okay, the people in power probably know what they're doing because they managed to get it. That was just a little basic thing. They don't know how to use that power, that for sure. But that in order to get it, you would think that you had to convince quite a few people. And of course, but moderates, but then moderates get everything done. That there's a comment from in here that moderates don't move the Overton window, but at the same time they have all the power and they get everything done, and they get everything done that they want to get done, and which is not much. And that's it's not wonderful, but from our perspective as being radicals. But, or actually, I'd say we're the moderates. The centrists are the radicals.
There you go. I was about to correct you there.
yeah, you know me well. But yeah, that is like that. This is a basic sense of social skills. Don't make enemies. It's a real easy way to stay in power. Once you have it, it's really easy to keep, and just don't screw it up. I mean, you just keep a good thing going. And I really think this is if we're going to be serious about, spreading the message and building bridges with, allies, well, that has to start with not criticizing them. And it's like, and understanding that when they come up, and yet obviously these people are very imperfect. Nobody's perfect, but you're going to have to find a way to, you're going to have to find a way to, criticize without criticizing. And the way to do that is to do so indirectly. And, and maybe if you're going to start out with the leftist, granted, I'm a right winger. I want nothing to do with them. But if I were going to start trying to build bridges with the left, the way I would approach them is, look, you guys do such a good job of caring about people. And if you put that same level of, mental effort into actually, understanding how these systems work, I think you would end up doing a lot better with these, with the poor people who you really do care about. Now, granted, I don't think they care about them. I care about the poor people at all. Their streets are littered with homeless people, so I don't want to hear crap about how the left cares about people. They don't. But if I'm going to try, that's how I would do it. I wouldn't, go in and say, your streets are littered with homeless people, and it's because you're an unconscientious asshole. Control freak, unconscientious control freak. I wouldn't go in and say like that. And if I were trying to, criticize the right, I wouldn't be like, hey, blood-soaked monsters, or hey, you guys don't even know what a price is. I wouldn't do that. It's like, and even if some of them are being assholes, let them look like assholes. The idea, if you look better and reasonable by comparison, and they're looking like an asshole while you look like a decent person who's just trying to have a decent conversation with them, it's like this, this is like the best thing, for you. This makes people actually want to take you seriously because you look like a real human being, and the other guy looks like an asshole.
Yeah, and that's a real big important thing that we need to stress. When you recognize that the person you want to look like an asshole is looking like an asshole, just let them look like an asshole. You don't need to. The right people will see that and realize that, and not give him the credit that he's seeking.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down to their level, you're as bad as them.
Right.
And this is a fundamental technique I've used repeatedly with dealing with people is, if they're going to come at me like an asshole, I'm going to highlight them and try and just let everyone see that they're being an asshole. And then I'll usually try to respond something reasonable, and this is a much better way of dealing with people. You don't go down to the level, you don't criticize if you're trying to build bridges. If you're trying to spread a national message to really change hearts and minds, you don't do it by calling attention to their faults. And like, seriously, and like, if you're going to be building a bridge with the right, you don't start off by saying, hey, you guys all support those genocide warmongers in Saudi Arabia and Israel. It's like, I know that's like the sort of thing that gets libertarians off because they're autistic, and they know they're autistic, but they have no intention of changing that. I don't know how that works. You would think, oh, gee, this is a problem. I should probably try to fix that.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that's just like throwing red meat to your base. This is the sort of navel gazing that the LP is famous for. It's a self-centered and narcissistic navel gazing. And this is not how you change minds. This is not how you change people's hearts. I mean, if you're going to be going out and you're going to have a lot of arguments with people about how things work, a good way is learn how to criticize and be moderate about it, and learn not to how to highlight people's faults. People don't like it when you highlight their faults, and they usually it's one of those things that you will instantly turn people off if you do it.
So I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
As far as the chapter goes, the first two examples where the boss walked by, saw the guy smoking, and handed him cigars and said, "Yeah, smoke these outside if you don't mind." That's kind of like leading by not leading by example. I think that would be the second case, right? But the first case is like I don't know how you'd call it. Like
that's just such a class act.
Right.
The dude is classy.
Because it's basically saying, like, look, I don't give a shit if you're smoking. That's not the problem. The problem is there's a sign above your head that says not to. So here, take these outside and have at it, have fun. And that kind of says, like, I could get behind a guy like that. I don't know who wouldn't be able to get behind a guy like that.
Exactly.
Like, because there's been a lot of times where, like, I think I brought it up on the last one, where I was on a job site when I was like, brand new, and we all had to wear hard hats and everything. And there was the superintendent. He I put my hard hat down for a second, and I didn't see him come up behind me. My hard hat was on the floor, and he kicked it down the hallway. He's like, "What the fuck? You need to put this on." And fucking kicked it all. And it was like, a big ass. It was like 200-foot hallway, and I had to go run and get it. Well, I can guarantee you, I didn't fucking like that guy, and I didn't give a shit anything he had to say after that. If he told me, if he just like grabbed it and like, here, oh hey, it looks like you dropped this or something like that, that would have been a lot different. And I probably would have been like, okay.
Yeah, and like on the I think that was an example in the first chapter, which is like the guy who wanted his the employer who wanted his guys to wear their hard hats. Just like, hey, well, look, is it uncomfortable? Is that why you don't like it? Like, it's here to protect you. And look, we haven't had guys do that, but I've been on job sites where that has happened. It's really, really sad. I don't want to have to go home and tell your family that you got hit on your head because you weren't wearing your hard hat. Yeah, and I really don't want the lawsuit that if you survive. Yeah. So right. I mean, if you happen to survive and like the steel beam falls on your head, believe me, I'm going to use this hard hat, like crush your skull and make sure that you don't survive because I don't want the lawsuit. Yeah. And but that's the that's the it's like, who are you trying to like? I mean, take this back to politics a little bit. Like, if you're trying to criticize people, who are you building credit? Like, who are you going to actually build credibility with? And if you're criticizing both sides, who's left? I mean, this is something that when you say you're neither right nor left, this is what you're saying is, I don't want to be associated with either of you. And because I think both of you are terrible and wrong. And
there's
it's like, well, thanks.
Perception that people,
neutrality is not a virtue.
Right. Well, yeah, but it's funny because like there's a lot of people. People are like, oh well, I'm politically homeless, or oh I'm this, or oh I'm that. And yeah, that might be true, but there's going to be a lot of people that although they're politically homeless, still identify with one side or the other.
Yeah. And it's like everyone has their instincts. Right. And it's like that, if you understand that humans, that they're all on a bell curve. I said this the other day that there's a common refrain from the the racist alt-right that politics is a horseshoe, that it actually goes kind of starts at the bottom and goes up and down on that political quadrant. I'm like, no, that's incorrect. It's really more of a bell curve. And that, because it's a bell curve of going from your lowest time preference for power to your highest time preference for power. And you have to understand and most people are going to be somewhere in the middle, and if you as a libertarian understand that you're on the one of the very far sides, and that this time preference for power basically determines everything about their someone's political views, your job is to move that center closer to you. And you're not going to do that by trying to say both sides suck.
Right.
you know it's
I
like,
think especially like if we look at it in the context of the second example in the book, where the boss saw the salespeople just like kind of they're bullshitting with each other, and he went up and rung the lady up and then handed the package to the people to
yeah.
that's what you do. He didn't like the way I look at that is like like I tweeted out the other day, like someone said something about like, oh, you need to be, you need to identify with what you are and then, tell everyone that that's what you are. And I'm like, well, no, what you do
Mhm.
is you don't identify with what you are and you just lead by example. You just use your action
Exactly.
to show people. And that's exactly what this example did is, okay, I could tell my employees like, hey, what the fuck? Or I could just like do it in front of them and then hand them the package. And then that's good enough. And it's the same thing with, if you throw that into politics, like if you want something done, instead of, bitching at everyone else to do it, is get up and do it yourself the way that you want to do it. And then the people that identify with that particular action, not even necessarily your whole ideology, but just that one particular action that you took, they were like, oh, well, I like that fact that this guy did this, so I'm going to start paying attention to him and, maybe, doing a little more of what he's saying. Um,
Yeah, and this is one pushback I've gotten a lot is, hey, you haven't actually done the things you say you want to do yet. It's like, well, okay, I did just start 6 months ago, but give me some time to build up to it. But
sure.
I'm getting there, but I think that's actually a very important take, that like two out of three of these examples are of people say, actually kind of leading by example and saying, oh, hi, this is how it's done. And moving forward with it and not making a big deal out of it. Now, granted, the things it's talking about here are rather minor faults of people, like an employee who's not paying attention, or a people who are smoking indoors when they're not supposed to be. That, like, these are minor faults that people can be quickly forgiven for. Now, granted, politics is full of people with substantially larger faults, and it's still but the same principle that's true when it's on the small level is also holds true at the big level. Who always gets stuff done? Lobbyists. What lobbyists never do? Criticize. Every I mean, it's a fucked up system, but it works. And you know what, they get everything they want. And like when I'm going in and talking to but like chamber of commerce types, or maybe even Coke types, or or these other people that libertarians would call like persona non grata.
Hmm.
It's like, I'm not going to go in and like talk to these guys and say what an assholes I think they are on X, Y, and Z issues, and if only they were perfect I could work with them. And but they're not perfect, but so I will only work with them on an issue by issue basis because I am principled and sanctimonious. And and like that's not the way. They're gonna like laugh me out, and and talk to themselves about how rude I was. And it's like, this is not the way. You would go in and say, well, hey, look, I think we have a lot of common ground right here, and I think we should work on this. And I think this is something that could be very mutually beneficial to us. And I appreciate the work you've done in the past on issues like this, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the sort of thing that would I mean, that's the sort of thing that I would actually lead with. You don't I wouldn't even try to highlight any of the places we disagree, because let's face it, like, what upside is that? I'm not going to change people like that. you know and I think this is a problem I get from the principled crowd, is that the principled crowd, they're really not principled. They're like the Puritan crowd. That's really what this is. That they don't want to be associated with these sorts of people, and that's why they want to keep their distance. And it's like people never have a you're immediately signaling, hi, I'm the out group. It's like this is not the way that you build bridges with people, is to set yourself apart as the out group. And because that in itself is a tacit criticism of of whatever the in group is. That's not how you build bridges. You build bridges by being a part of it, by being apart with people. By being with people, not by being a separate from them. And this is let's go ahead and continue reading. Oops, I lost my page. 199, I found it. Okay. Calling attention to one's mistakes indirectly works wonders with sensitive people who may resent bitterly any direct criticism. Marge Jacob of Woonsocket, Rhode Island, told one of our classes how she convinced some sloppy construction workers to clean up after themselves when they were building additions to her house. For the first few days of the work, when Miss Jacob returned from her job, she noticed that the yard was strewn with cut ends of lumber. She didn't want to antagonize the builders because they did excellent work. So after the workers had gone home, she and her children picked up and neatly piled all of the lumber debris in a corner. The following morning, she called the foreman to one side and said, "I'm really pleased with the way the front lawn was left last night. It is nice and clean and does not offend the neighbors." From that day forward, the workers picked up and piled the debris to one side, and the foreman came in each day seeking approval of the condition of the lawn, which was left in after one day's work. One of the major areas of controversy between members of the Army Reserves and their regular Army trainers is haircuts. The reservists consider themselves civilians, which they are most of the time, and resent having to cut their hair short. Master Sergeant Harley Kaiser of the 542nd USAR School addressed himself to this problem when he was working with a group of reserve non-commissioned officers. As an old-time regular Army Master Sergeant, he might have been expected to yell at his troops and threaten them. Instead, he chose to make his point indirectly. "Gentlemen," he started, "you are leaders. You will be the most effective when you lead by example. You must be the example for your men to follow. You know what the Army regulations say about haircuts. I am going to get my hair cut today, although it's still much shorter than some of yours. You look at yourself in the mirror, and if you feel you need a haircut to be a good example, we'll arrange a time for you to visit the post barber shop." The result was predictable. Several of the candidates did look in the mirror and went to the barber shop that afternoon and received regulation haircuts. Sergeant Kaiser commented that the next morning that he already could see the development of leadership qualities in some of the members of the squad. On March 8th, 1887, the eloquent Henry Ward Beecher died. The following Sunday, Lyman Abbott was invited to speak in the pulpit, left silent by Beecher's passing. Eager to do his best, he wrote, rewrote, and polished his sermon with meticulous care of a flowbird. Then he read it to his wife. It was poor, as most written speeches are. She might have said, if she had had less judgment, "Lyman, that is terrible. That'll never do. You'll put people to sleep. It reads like an encyclopedia. You ought to know better than that after all the years that you've been preaching. For heaven's sake, why don't you talk like a human being? Why don't you act natural? You'll disgrace yourself if you ever read that stuff." That's what she might have said. And if she had, what would have happened? She knew it too. So she merely remarked that it would make an excellent article for the North American Review. In other words, she praised it and at the same time subtly suggested that it wouldn't do as a speech. Lyman Abbott saw the point, tore up his carefully prepared manuscript, and preached without even using notes. An effective way to correct others' mistakes is to call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. End of chapter 4.2. This is a point that I really think needs to be just driven home to people. If you're always going to call attention to people's sins, eventually people are going to start calling attention to yours. Because let's face it, no one likes that, and no one likes to be reminded that you're all sinners in the hands of an angry God, so to speak. Right. And I feel like libertarians, that they always get into this, where they're going to be trying to call attention to mistakes that other people have on both sides have made. But in doing so, you're not going to be building bridges here. You're not going to be changing people's minds. And I mean, some people enjoy, a dogfight. I mean, that's a lot. That is part of the entertainment value of politics. But if you're only, trying to, build entertainment value, you're not actually changing hearts and minds, because those people are just there to be entertained. So that's not the sort of thing that this is not the sort of thing that's actually going to actually get the results done. You actually have to, this is a question I think Erickson has been really, really good about asking people is, do you care more about liberty or being libertarian? And, those two are not the same. And I really feel like a lot of them, they'll all say that they care more about liberty, but your actions and how you deal with people, that matters quite a lot. See, I care quite a lot about liberty. That's why I tend to stay away from like really hardcore criticism of people. And even when I do, it's like I usually you try to argue with using their own words.
Yeah.
Because like, come on, man, you know better than this. You're better than this, and I'll be complimentary and all that. And this is the sort of thing that actually changes minds a little bit. But some people, if they just they're I'm thinking names right now, and I'm not going to say names.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, but because again, let's not criticize people for their sins.
Yeah. I think that if you do, you should do it like in a way like this chapter suggests, where you just kind of do it indirectly, and maybe even throw like a fault of your own in there prior.
Yeah, I mean, you show like understanding, that way. You show that, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. You're probably thinking something along the lines of this, this, and this, and obviously you didn't intend for it to come across this way, and I've been guilty of this several times. Actually, I saw in the chat, like who is it? Basically the probably one of the most successful guys in the liberty movement, Carlos Abelar, right there. He says, yep, I'm guilty of that, but I'm trying to do less of it. And to answer a question in the chat, isn't this just passive aggressive BS?
Yeah,
this shit works. It works.
It does, but it doesn't. Like it's funny because like as we're reading this book, and as you're reading this chapter, and while I was reading it before, today, I actually had this same thing. Like, some of these I'd be like, this guy's a fucking prick for doing this kind of shit. Like, but that's the thing. Like, you need to use this book for most people, but it's not going to work on everybody, right? Because you're going to want the person. There's going to be a person that just wants you to tell them straight up, like, look, this is my problem I have with you. You need to fix it. But I think that's few and far between.
Well, I mean, perhaps you were that kind of person. You would do something like this to broach that subject with them. Right. Yeah, and the sort of person that really wants you to be direct with them like that, or they're just very unsubtle, autistic, libertarian. That they're not. They just want to be straight up told like that. They're 1% of society for a reason, you know.
And I wouldn't even say, I would look at it too, like some people that are actually in power already. If you're close to someone, sometimes it's nice to hear, a criticism that no one else is willing to give you, but that's only from like
sometimes, You know, if you're ultra powerful, like maybe you'll respect somebody for that if you think they're right.
That's
You
what I'm
know,
saying, yeah.
but normally these people are like narcissistic assholes. And you
Right.
know, it's like, and calling any attention to any sort of perceived fault, even unintentionally, is like, you know, is going to make you persona non grata with
Yeah.
them.
I
And
understand, like, this book is more for like the masses, not like particular instances, right?
for the
But
masses. So if you have a national campaign to spread the message to the masses, you know, right here.
what was the name? Your wife said that they call this book in China. I was trying to remember. I couldn't remember.
The weakness of humans.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a wonderfully apt name.
yeah.
And the you know, like you know, if you're, you know, saying, hey, you know, I'm from, actually this is another excellent comment of, you know, hey, this is where I'm from, this is my culture. And yeah, but you know, if you're, most people are not from New York, this is why you should learn this for
You know,
other people who are not from there.
I'm from Chicago, so I know New York and Chicago aren't exactly the same, but I agree with that statement. You know, depends
Yeah.
on where you're at. Maybe it's for, but I don't think so. I think even geographic locations and that kind of thing. I think most people uh, don't like don't like to just be told what it is that they're doing.
Oh yeah, it's like, I mean, do you want to be around the person? Do you really want to listen to the person all the time who only has things to say about your faults? Or it's like these are things that quickly come to their mind, and you know they're looking down on you. It's like, that's not a person I want to be around.
Right.
And it's not a person I really want to listen to.
Well, I mean, look at it this way too. Like the reason we got Trump was exactly because that's what the left did to so many people.
Yeah, exactly. I
So
mean, you know, when the, you know, when the, you know, like with, you know, with when we elected, like in 2012 and 2008, you know, the right was still kind of under that impression. Oh, we need to be like reasonable and moderate and all that in order to really, you know, we don't want to be too radical. And then, you know, we like elected, you know, John McCain and Mitt Romney, and they still, you know, called like Mitt Romney like a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. And at that point, we finally woke up, and, or I should say, not we, but you know, the rest of the right finally woke up and said, "All right, fuck you. We'll show you racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe."
yeah,
And we, you know, elected Donald Trump because let's face it, no one likes it, you know, having their faults called to him. Like the vast majority of people, you know, are going to hate it. Even like libertarians, like the other day in the Libertarian Party, like I asked, you know, Michael Heiss publicly, like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about, you know, actually like branching out and working. And like the first thing he comes back with is like, you're propping up like warmongers and you know, drug warriors and shit. And I'm like, all right, fuck you. And you know, I kind of responded to, and of course I got defensive right there. I'm like, well, you know, now that you mention it, you have actually some mountain of baby blood on your hands. So it being in the LP being a pro-choice party, so fuck you. And you know, but that's a natural response. Like this is the, you know, if you going in and criticizing people just out of nowhere like that, that's what's going to happen. And they're not going to want to come over and be your ideological allies.
well, I think a lot of that towards you anyway is like these guys that and grant I will grant them they have been doing what they think is the best thing to do, and they have been putting some actions out there like Michael Heiss for sure. So like I won't say that they're not doing anything, um, but
like, I mean, you say you want to spread the message to people, and you know, but your first message to them is, I think you're a horrible person.
right.
It's like, well, great message, buddy.
Well,
Keep up the
my
good
my
work.
thing was like and this is like just the LP in general is like they're all fucking large fish in a small pond. Like in the grand scheme of things, they don't matter. Even all the shit that they've done, they still don't matter, and they're not going to. And that's the
No.
problem that they don't see. But anybody that's not as big as they are within their circle, they feel like almost slighted. Like, oh, why is this pleb talking to me? Why are they telling me things that
This
I'm actually
impure
doing
sin, this sinner is talking to me.
right.
You know, do you not understand the sort of person that you're talking to? You know, as I mean, I
Right.
was like, you know, it harkens back to that story from the gospel of the woman who's like the prostitute is like kissing Jesus's feet, and the Pharisees are like, do you not understand what kind of woman is touching you? And He's like, yeah. And it's like, she's greeting me. You didn't. And, what do you have to say about that? And so and, that like this, I think this is such a fundamental thing with people. Just don't criticize them. And if you, or at least don't call attention to their sins, they know, and they're probably trying to change it, and that is like, and you calling attention to like what a shit person you think they are is just, turns them off to you. It's like, why? And, maybe there are some people you do want to turn off because they're just that bad. I mean, there are people out there like that. When it comes to the left, that's exactly how I am. And, I make no bones about, I make no pretense about, trying to change their minds.
Right. You're not trying to change your mind at all.
I'm not, and I'm not saying I need, like, I'm not the one running on like a national message of, oh, I need a national campaign or something like that. And therefore I'm going to criticize both sides. I'm saying I need power so I can crush my enemies. And, so I'm on the right, and my allies are right here. And that's who I will go with. It's like, I'm not doing this whole, thing. But if I were trying to do that, I wouldn't be going out and saying, how shitty I think both sides are. It's like that. I mean, because now you're not just like offending 50% of the people. You're offending like 90% of the people. It's like, what kind of strategy is this? It's like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe that's what it takes to wake people up. I just don't think so. And the evidence doesn't support that. And, if you're going to be, criticize, you want to like just call indirect attention to it. And you want to say, I think, maybe you're a left. Okay. If I, again with the left, if I like, I think they make this, problem because they really do care about people, but they haven't quite thought this all through. Well, no, I messed up right there. It's not this, because I said but, and you don't want to do but. You want to do and, not but. And I said that, if these people really care about people, and if they put that same level of care into really thinking through the likely consequences of their particular policies, I think they would do a lot better. And it's something like that. And it's like, the problem with the maybe with the right, I think that they often neglect the economic, as much as they do try to get the incentives right for people. They do neglect some of the or not, it's like, I really think they should take a look at the more human incentives of some of their policies, and how that might be leading to malincentives that they had not intended. And perhaps we can show them a better way to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, instead of saying, oh yeah, these guys are just asshole drug warriors and fuck them, they want to lock all black kids in cages. That's one would actually broach a real conversation with the conservatives. The other is just going to be like, all right, you're a fucking lawbird, get off my show. And this and again, if
bottom line is, everybody just wants to be liked.
People want to be liked.
It's as simple as it is.
It really is. And if you make them feel unlikable, you make them feel unlovable, they're going to tune you out. And by the way, want to give a shout out to this girl. Be more like Rochelle.
I saw that too, and I was gonna say something, but I was like, "Oh, I don't want to interrupt him just for that."
Oh no, it's like, hey, you can always interrupt me for that. This is a much better thing. But yeah, if you're going to be going about this in a by the way, I know there's some people in here, they do have their hearts and minds set on spreading a message, but how about we make a nicer message for people, instead of a less harsh one that, is just going to turn them off. It's like, is this about, venting? I really have to ask that question. Like, is this, national campaign thing just about like venting hard feelings over, how bad it's been in the last 20 years? If so, yeah, go ahead. But if you're actually like serious about like changing hearts and minds and waking people up, which by the way, right there is like a criticism, because you're implying that they're asleep.
And that's a bad. Not only are they sleeping, but it's also a bad thing that they are.
Yeah, and you're saying it's all their fault that, you know, all these bad things happen, and you're just playing the blame game there, you know. But if you're actually serious about, you know, trying to, you know, win hearts and minds, well, there's a method for that, and, you know, like, you know, calling attention to people's sins and, you know, and their character faults is not the way to do it. So you don't want to be like the left and call everyone racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe, you know, when you're calling them blood-soaked monster, warmonger, you know, what's a drug warrior, and, you know, lockdowner or something like that. And, you know, that's, you know, you just like turned everybody off. Like, and, you know, when you're going in and you're saying that, oh, you guys don't even understand what a price is. And it's like, buddy, yeah, and like, and, you know, doing stuff
Okay,
like that is why they're not going to care.
and you know,
You
I
know,
just gotta say, I was gonna say, you know, like, okay, how many people is he talking to, specifically
who
talking
doesn't
about,
maybe?
but that doesn't give a fuck if they know what that means or not.
Yeah,
That's the thing. Like, we a lot of these arguments are coming from a space that only certain people will even give a shit about,
it's so
and
niche.
that's and like, if you're gonna say something like that, understand most people don't give a fuck what you think you think they know, you
Yeah,
know, or
it's,
they're
and your
completely
attitude is communicating to them exactly why they shouldn't care.
right.
And
Yeah.
like, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
you're right. You know, it's just like, okay, I don't know what that means, and I don't care. You know,
Yeah, I'm saying I'm going to continue living my life, and I just want my
right, right.
problem solved. And this
Yeah.
is something Larry Sharp said you know, on his show with Reed Coverdale, you know, a little while ago, that, you know, people they're not particular about how they get things done. They just want to get them done. You know, they want their problem solved. They're not going you know, sometimes that, you know, they enjoy going and seeing the other guy get bloodied up. You know, I mean, that's the appeal for MMA. That's why
Mhm.
people will watch MMA. That's not why they, you know, and politics is kind of a lesser extent of that, you know, where they just like say bad things about each other. So it's a lot less satisfying than, you know, seeing, you know, Conor McGregor bloody up some other, you know, hapless fighter.
Yeah,
And so yeah, there is some entertainment value there, but again, if you're not there to entertain people, you're there to change hearts and minds.
right.
And, you know,
It all goes back to what you always say about, you know, people work towards their incentives. They act their incentives, you know.
yeah.
And like you said, if their incentive is to do A, they don't give a shit, you know, how to get there as long as it gets done.
Exactly. That's it. And people just that, yeah, they don't really care, you know. So yeah, if it, you know, if they're, you know, the solution to them, you know, involves voting for a politician to get some sort of benefit, yeah, they're going to do that.
Mhm.
And, you know, and they're not going to think twice about it. They're going to sleep like babies at night.
Well,
And you going in and calling attention to, oh, well, you didn't have a right to do that. It's like, well, okay, maybe, but,
growing
you
up, like
know,
I do in Chicago, like these politicians don't even give the people what they want. You know, like all the shit that people vote for these politicians for, they don't get any of it, and they still vote for them. So all that tells me is you just have to have people like you.
yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, just be likable. This is exactly why I said why moderates tend to run the system.
Right.
They're likable. You know, they don't come. This is another thing that it just works. You know, this is why lobbyists. You know, again, think of it like this: how many times have you seen an interview with an activist, and how many times did that activist, you know, who's like telling you about all the problems, and you had no idea how bad it was, and how often does that activist get done what they want done?
Right. No.
Very rarely. On the
Right.
other hand, how many times have you seen a lobbyist do the same exact thing? Probably never. You maybe once. I can only remember one interview with any lobbyist ever. And you know, it was after the guy went to prison. So yeah. So that was the one. And the and that but you know, like, and you know, but how many you know, more lobbyists are there that didn't do that and got their way?
Hmm.
A lot. Quite a lot.
Most of them.
Yeah, probably. And we definitely know there's quite a few. And you know, I mean, the system is, you know, I mean, that doesn't make it right, but you know, maybe this is the right strategy though for getting stuff done. I mean, that's something really worth thinking about. Is, you know what, you know, having this yeah, this attitude about people that, you know, it's like, I'm a sinner too, and you know, we're just gonna, you know, ignore that and try to, you know, work together on something as if I think you're a good person. You know, because everyone sees themselves as everyone is the hero in their own story. No one writes it unless you're like, maybe Jared from End Democracy, because he has that on his little bio that I am the villain. No one's the villain in their own story. So, but unless you're Jared, shout out to Jared End Democracy from the Hoppian. I love that guy. He's great. But yeah, I mean, you very rarely, we'll see people who are very successful have a lot of enemies. It just doesn't happen. It really doesn't. In politics, that's kind of comes with the territory, but just in general, nah. Most people who are really successful, they have a bunch of people clamoring to be their ally, because it's good for them. They want something from it.
Yeah.
But those kinds of people do not have enemies. They just don't. And even if they have competitors, like their competitors still probably really like them, and still think they can learn from something. And yeah, but it's, actually Carlos just asked an excellent question. 1 second. He says, so if the middle runs things, why not play to them? Well, this is playing. This is how you play to them. That, this is how you do that. This hyper competitive, this is how Trump turned off the middle all the time. And the only thing that was worse than that was Hillary. It's the let's face it, that Trump's like cage fighting, sort of demeanor was, it was really great red meat for the base, but for the center, they're like, God, it's like I have to pick between the Clintons and this guy. Ugh. And like this is how, if you're going to play to the middle, this is how you do it. You don't go in and start a food fight, and start bringing up everyone's sins and all that. And that, and that's just not going to do it for people. And so it's like, if you're going to play to them, as a libertarian who's really far on one side, and again, this time preference for power thing, it's all on a bell curve, and it runs the entire system, of how people believe. So if you're on the really far right of that, where you have, basically no preference for power, you want basically an infinite deferral because you never think it's okay. And it's just like you're going to have to be a really spectacularly likable person in order to accomplish that. You can't go in, calling people like blood-soaked monsters on one side and, power hungry, commies on the left. Oh, or pedophiles. Pedophiles is another excellent descriptor for the left. But granted, I'm not appealing to them, and I'm not saying I should. And I'm not advocating anybody do that. I think it's a dumb idea because they don't want what we're selling. And they're on the opposite end of the bell curve. So, yeah. But but if you're going to be playing to people in the middle, and it's like, if that's your game as a libertarian party who thinks you're a centrist when you're not, and you want to talk, start, a food fight with both sides to say how horrible they are, that's not going to fly with people. Because guess what? These are the people in the center really don't like conflict. Right. That's their thing.
I mean, even if you do pull from the left and the right by saying that you're neither left or right, I mean, you're not even denting the population. I mean, you might as well not even be in the argument if you're going to pull like 2% from here and 2% from here. Like, it's not going to do you any good.
Well, it's like, and worse is like, you're not going to change people's hearts and minds this way. Yeah. By saying, hey, we are 100% neutral. It's like, oh, so you're like Switzerland. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't change hearts and minds.
Well, I mean, if you think about it too, like, okay, if you're neutral, that means you're not going to get anything done. So why should I do anything for you?
Yeah. And it's like, and I understand that the people in the middle is like, they want to use power, but they just don't want to fight about it. Like that's kind of their thing. That's what it means to be in the middle and have a middle time preference for powers.
That's true.
Yeah. You basically want to you want to use power and just not have conflict about it. That's the conflict averse people overwhelmingly go to the center, or they just get out of politics altogether.
Yeah.
That's what, that's the sort of person you're appealing to. And if you're going to appeal to them, there you go. John, it's been excellent talking to you. Where can people find you?
Twitter at John Hartman. I don't know if you got, there you go. At John_Hartman. Twitter is mostly what I do. I haven't really been doing any of my YouTube stuff lately. I've been kind of painting, and now it's getting cold, so I've been making all kinds of. I crochet. Taught myself how to crochet last year, so I've been like making my kids all kinds of stuff.
Damn, bro, you got some real artistic talent. I know, because I know you painted all that stuff behind you.
Yeah. So I just I have a short attention span, so I just kind of do what I do, and every once in a while it's something like this or something like what I'm doing with you, or whatever. But I think I'm kind of on and off vocal on Twitter mostly.
Yeah,
that would be where I would
a
say
very healthy thing.
And then I guess you could find me at Mind Your Business with John Hartman on YouTube. I think I only have like 17 videos. They're pretty short too, but that's more of like a Eastern, not even Eastern philosophy, just like
you do have a really interesting one about your recent trip, how you quit smoking.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was a
highly recommend that for people.
And you know what? I think it's I don't even think about it anymore. But it's been almost 3 months now that I quit completely.
Dude, I'm super proud of you.
The help of psychedelics, but yeah, definitely check that one out. I think that's the second to the last one I did. So check me out there. Mind Your Business with John Hartman, and yeah.
And of course, you guys know where to find me. And if you will please support, this show and support more episodes of this by joining the the Popular Liberty Inner Circle, on subscribestar.com/popular-liberty. It's at the $7 level. You can, join my supporting listeners group, and it really helps the show. And I think we have a lot of really great conversations in there, where we actually have long discussions, and they're really thoughtful and, a lot more agreeable, a lot less, food fight of Twitter. Like this is, and I think this is the way, anyone who, I have long conversations with, I tend to change their minds. And I think this is a perfect place that where if you're on the fence about any of these ideas, let's talk. And I think that, and if you join this supporting listeners group, this is a place where, where I think you're going to have your hearts and minds changed. Thank you. All right. Y'all have a nice night, and I'll talk to y'all again soon.